Hello and welcome to Occupied Thoughts, a podcast brought to you by the Foundation for Middle East Peace. I'm Peter Beinart, a fellow at the Foundation for Middle East Peace. Today is March 19th, 2025, and I'm honored to have with me today Naji Abbas, Director of the Prisoners and Detainees Department for Physicians for Human Rights, Israel. Naji has been working and advocating for prisoners' rights in Israeli prisoners for the past 6 years, with a focus on the right to health care in detention. Welcome, Naji. Thanks you for joining me today.
Thank you, Peter.
There is a new report out from Physicians for Human Rights Israel entitled Torture of Medical Workers in Israel, a Call for Urgent Action. I wonder if you can talk about the contents of the report.
Yeah, sure. The report also, beside the torture and the horrific conditions that the doctors and the Palestinian healthcare workers are being held, the report focused on the unlawful aspects of the arrest itself. And that's actually was the new thing that PHR tried to do, because usually we used, and that's what we mainly do, we focus on the rights of the detainees, no matter who are they. But in this report, we focused on the person themselves, because what we saw in the last year, since the start of the war in Gaza, October 2023, that the Israeli army arrested in mass numbers of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, paramedics. So we decided in this report to focus on these people, because who are they? Because we saw a pattern. We saw that a lot of people, healthcare workers, are being arrested, and we couldn't understand why. These mass numbers, we are speaking about more than 250 healthcare workers who were arrested, more than 100 still in detention right now. That's the new thing that we try to focus on in our report. We visited in this, the report is based on 21 testimonies that we collected in the last 6 months from people, doctors, paramedics, nurses who are in detention. Some of them already got released. And we try to understand, first of all, why they are being arrested, why they are being kept in detention, on under which law, what is the reason, what is the logic of keeping them in detention, and in which condition. That's what we tried to analyze and to look for.
So what did you find out? Why is it that so many healthcare workers in Gaza were taken by Israel into detention?
Through the testimonies, through the visits, the testimonies were collected by our lawyers who do the visits in the detention centers in Israel. And through the visits, through the answers of the doctors and their stories about the way they were arrested, from where they were arrested, on what they were interrogated, what they were asked, and what happened during the legal procedures that they faced, or the hearings that they were sent to. We understood that these healthcare workers were targeted because of their work. We saw that actually before starting collecting the testimonies, because every time the Israeli army invaded a health facility in Gaza, that started already in December 2023 with Al-Shifa Hospital. After that, Kamal Adwan Hospital, Nasser Hospital, again Al-Shifa Hospital in March 2023. Every time after invading the facility, destroying the building itself, the Israeli army arrested dozens of healthcare workers. And all of them, all the detainees, the doctors that we visited, said that they were arrested from their workplace, from their hospitals. And some of them actually said that they were arrested in the checkpoints of the Israeli army inside Gaza when the soldier knew that they are doctors. They were passing from the north to the south with their families when they knew that they are dealing with a doctor. He was arrested and his family were allowed to pass. So this facts led us to the conclusion that they actually were targeted because of their what they do, because of their work. And during the interrogation, actually, they weren't accused with anything that they did. No one of them were accused in something that he did. They were asked about their workplace, about their colleagues, if they saw or knew anything about the Israeli hostages who were injured and needed medical care. They were asked, all of them, about tunnels under the hospitals. All of them said that no, there's no tunnels under the hospitals. Uh, and some of them actually were kept inside Gaza after their arrest with the soldiers, being forced to lead the soldiers inside the facility itself, in the different sections of the hospital itself. So we understood that the interrogation actually was meant to collect information, fishing for information. That is illegal. Some people will think, okay, they are collecting information. No, that is illegal. That is unlawful. You don't arrest people in this way to collect information. You need to have something to accuse them with, but none of them were accused with anything. And after that, actually, during the hearing that and the judge, what so-called judge that they met, because they meet a judge by a phone camera. That's the way that the legal procedure is being done. And they are saying, the doctor said, someone who claimed that he's a judge spoke with us for a few minutes, saying you are not charged with anything, with any offense, but you will stay in detention till the end of the war or for unknown time. So the surprising thing for us was all the healthcare workers, all the doctors, all the nurses described the same things. That was surprising for us because we thought, okay, one will be like this, one will ask, have been asked different questions. No, no, all of them were asked the same things, were told the same things, told directly. They are not being charged, but they will stay in detention. And we are speaking now about people who are still in detention for more than a year without any charges.
So you think the reason they were specifically targeting healthcare workers is that the Israeli military thought that those healthcare workers might have some special information about either the hostages or Hamas fighters in, somewhere in tunnels or wherever. And because they thought they might have special information, they were picked up in an effort to extract that information.
Exactly. That's what we got through the testimonies directly from the detainees themselves. And collecting of this information or these questions and this interrogation weren't so nice. Doctors, you are speaking here, and also it's a different thing for our lawyers. They are sitting in front of some a well-known surgeon in Gaza, and actually some of them well-known doctors in different places in the world, and they are describing for us horrific things, torture, beating, being electric, abused, being starved, using what's so-called the disco room, throwing them in a room with a loud music for days, and after that, when they are exhausted, to start the interrogation and the questioning. And beside the unlawful aspect of collecting information, arresting for collecting information, here we are speaking about collecting information under torture. But beside that, actually, Peter, beside the conclusion that all of these arrests were meant to fishing for information, we understood that we can't ignore the fact that these arrests happened beside the destruction of the health facilities in Gaza. And we asked actually experts around the world. And one Syrian doctor, actually gave us a very reasonable reason behind these arrests. Because when you destroy the facility itself and you arrest the staff that provide the health care, you leave the civil society there in Gaza, the civilians, the wounded people, the injured people, the sick people, with no opportunity to get any medical care. There is no facility. There is no personnel who provide the care. And we met like a doctor from Khan Yunis, from Nasser Hospital, who said, I was the last surgeon in the hospital when I was arrested. So you can imagine when the last surgeon in a hospital in a war area is being arrested, there's no surgery. So another conclusion is that this mass arrest of medical care workers was meant to destroy, is part of destroying the healthcare system. And when you destroy a healthcare system in one area, you are you are forcing the community to leave.
So do you think that Israel was particularly trying to force people out of certain areas of the Gaza Strip? Because it seemed like the northern area of the Gaza Strip was where Israel particularly wanted people to be forced out of, or was it all over?
It was all over because they did the same. It was the same policy in the north, in Rafah, in Khan Yunis. Every time the Israeli army wanted to invade an area in Gaza, they the first thing that they did, they targeted the medical facilities, destroying the building, the facility itself, arresting the staff from there, and keeping the wounded people, the civilians, without any medical care.
Yeah.
So that is a main reason to push people to leave.
Is that why you think that the medical workers were kept in detention even after they said that they didn't know anything about the hostages or the tunnels? Because it would seem like even if you accepted the rationale that that's why they picked these people up, once they said they didn't know anything, why would you still keep them there?
Exactly. That come along with this conclusion that one of the main goal was destroying and keeping the people away from this area and not to let them come back. And actually, we can say it's a sad conclusion. Another conclusion why for your question, an answer for your question. In April 2024, when PHR and other human rights groups managed to reveal the horrific conditions in what's called Sde Teman military base, what it's called now the Israeli Guantanamo, actually. The Israeli army started to release some of the detainees in Gaza. The detainees that they didn't have any information and they weren't accused with anything. So if you go back to the Israeli media in April and May, you will find out that every week the Israeli army released 50 detainees from Gaza, 70 detainees from Gaza, every week. What happened in May 2024, Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya was released. Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya is the director of Al Shifa Hospital. He was released after 7 months of detention. And then to go back when he was arrested in December 2023, the Israeli army led a wide campaign describing Al Shifa Hospital as the main center of Hamas operation, that the doctors are involved with Hamas operation. Dr. Abu Salmiya is the biggest terrorist in the world. And suddenly, after 7 months, he was released because they started to release people that they don't have anything to do with. But after the release of Dr. Abu Salmiya, there was a big noise in the Israeli media and some of the Israeli decisions makers on how you release the biggest terrorist in the world. How is that? And the Israeli intelligence said we have nothing against him. He was released. And you can see, and that is a very sad thing, that these voices, these extremists, these are not people from the street. These are many people who are in a decision making position. Uh, so the Israeli army stopped releasing people
Mm.
because of the noise,
Yeah.
and also the doctors and the nurses, and they were stopped, and they are still waiting. Yesterday, just 3 days ago, we visited three doctors that we visited before, and we asked, "Did you, from the last visit, did you were interrogated again? Did you see a judge again?" They said, "No, we are waiting." We are told they were told from some guard or some soldier that you will be released, but
Mm,
they don't know why, when.
mm.
So they are waiting.
So how many medical workers are still in detention? Do you know?
Eh, from what we know, before the deal started in January, 2 months ago, there was a 150,
Mhm.
but some of them were released during the deal. Because during the deal, all the detainees who were released, the Palestinians from Gaza, these people who are not charged with anything. The Israeli media like to call them terrorists, 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 but these the people who officially have no charges. So some of the doctors and nurses and some of them who we already visited were released. Now we are speaking about 120. We don't have an exact number. That's an the data and the information is a whole different story, because the Israeli army don't release information and don't provide information and exact numbers of the detainees from Gaza.
Mm, mm,
And that's why we couldn't visit any one of the doctors till June 2024.
mm,
Because in the first 8 months of the war, the official policy of the Israeli army was what we called in the legal word a, and forcible disappearing. When you force people to disappear, when you take them, it's can't be actually called arrest, because arrest have legal meaning. It's taking people and making them disappear. You can't, their families, their lawyers, the ICRC, the Red Cross, no one can get any information. That was an official policy for 8 months. And by the international humanitarian law, that is a crime against humanity. It's defined like this, a crime against humanity. That was the official policy. After June, we started to manage to locate people, detainees, and doctors and nurses. We managed to visit some of them, but we don't have information and exact information about everybody.
Um, what is the uh has anyone been charged or prosecuted in Israeli courts for the treatment of the healthcare workers in detention?
Okay, I will share with you, Peter, something that we didn't say till now. Actually, we met a doctor who treated some hostage, one hostage
Mm,
in the 7th of October. We visited him and he told us that the Israeli interrogator told him, "Thank you." And he didn't hide it. He said, "I was a doctor in a hospital.
mm,
People, armed people arrived with with an injured woman,
Mhm.
what I'm supposed to do?
Right.
I
Right.
treated her.
Right.
I treated her and I went to the next patient
Mm.
because there are wounded people in Gaza. There are other patients in Gaza. So he said, I treated her and I went to the next patient. I have wounded people. I have people who were struck by airplanes. I need to continue. And the interrogator, the guy who, the Israeli guy who interrogated him, he told him, thank you. But what does thank you mean? What the value of this word? Nothing, actually. He's still in detention for more than 1 year.
Mm.
He was told you will be released after through 3 weeks.
Mm. Mm.
He's waiting for a year and 2 months now.
Mm.
So that's actually no one from the doctors or the healthcare workers are accused with anything. They are being kept in detention in what so-called, it's an Israeli law, an Israeli invention called unlawful combatant law.
Mm.
When you say the word, it seems a big thing,
Mm.
unlawful combatant law.
Mm.
But no, it's an Israeli definition replacing the international law of war prisoners. People you that you capture who are not soldiers, who are not combatant, and when you capture during a war, people who should be released in some point because they are not accused with anything that they did. So the Israeli authorities don't define Palestinians as prisoners of war because prisoners of wars have rights by the international humanitarian law.
Mm. Mm.
So they found out an Israeli definition called unlawful combatant law, and on the ground it's mean nothing. It's another way of administrative detention. Administrative detention is when you kept in detention for months without any charges, and you don't know for how long you will be in detention.
So there have been no prosecutions for torture against these healthcare workers.
I didn't how? I didn't understand.
Oh, sorry. I mean, you were saying that many of these healthcare workers have been tortured or abused, treated very badly. Has there been any punishment by Israel of the people in the prison who did these things to the medical workers?
Eh, Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, no, because eh, till now we don't know about any guard and about any soldier who was punished for the horrific things that the detainees, including the healthcare workers, are describing.
Mhm.
And in our report, we focused on three methods of torture:
Mhm.
the direct abuse and beating and violence and assault, the starvation policy, and the medical neglect. Unfortunately, till now, in the last year, since the start of the war, more than 70 Palestinians died in detention, in the Israeli detention, including doctors like Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, like Dr. Yadar Antisi, and another doctor and a paramedic who died, and their testimonies describing that they were died under torture. They died after being beaten till death. From what we know, no soldier and no guards in the Israeli detention facilities were punished, have faced any accusation or punishment.
Um, You've been talking about medical workers in particular, but I wonder if you can just say something about the general treatment of Palestinian prisoners in Israel since October 7th? What have the conditions been like?
I, it's a horrific reality. We are speaking, as I said, we are speaking about more than 70 people who died in detention. Some of them actually our one doctors who volunteer with the PHR participated in their autopsies. We have the families, and we found clear signs of assault, of beating. And we, in the last year, beside the doctors and the healthcare workers, we visited more than 400 detainees, Palestinian detainees. All of them described daily beating without any reason. We knew before the methods of torture to get information through the interrogation. Now we are speaking about torture without any reason, a daily violence.
Um, you were just saying about the overall the conditions for Palestinian prisoners.
Yeah. So, as I said, we visited hundreds of Palestinian detainees. And beside the daily beating, the violence without any cause, you can't actually find any reasonable cause why this is happening, except just torturing people. And besides this, the Palestinian detainees were left after the 7th of October with nothing. Nothing mean no any aspect of life were taken. Their family pictures, their clothes, they were left with one t-shirt and one pants for more than a year and a half. We are visiting people in the winter who come to the visit with a short pants and with a short t-shirt, freezing. Young people in their 20s. The food is horrific. The food is horrific. Eh, we are speaking, we have medical documents saying that the Palestinian detainees in some Israeli facilities are getting maximum 1,000 calorie, when a grown-up man need at least 20,000. And the 1,000 is mainly bread. So we are meeting people who lost 20 and 30 kilograms of their weight. In the last year, we dealt, PHR dealt, because that's our main work, the healthcare, the health treatment inside the prisons. We dealt with the pandemic of scabies. Scabies is a skin disease. It's a horrific thing to have. It doesn't kill you, but it's a way of torture. Actually, it was used as a way of torture because thousands of Palestinians were infected, and the Israeli prison service refused to provide them treatment or to let them wash their clothes or to change their clothes, because that's part of the treatment, for 6 months. People kept, and some people developed another skin infections. They developed more serious diseases, skin diseases. So the Israeli detention facilities today, and a lot of human rights groups called it a group of torture facilities, torture camp. It's not a detention facilities. It's facilities that meant its main goal is torturing people. And actually, it's not something that happened out of nowhere. Maybe after the 7th of October, the doors were opened widely for the IPS, the Israel Prison Service, and the Israel Army to do whatever they want. But actually, that was the philosophy of the Ben Gvir, the Minister of Interior and Security, who's charge of the Israeli prison before the war. because Ben-Gvir, from his day one in the office, he said it, that he don't think and he don't believe that keeping people in detention is enough, because in any a state of law, you punish people by limiting their freedom. That is the punishment. If you want to punish them, that is the punishment, and you have to hold them in a conditions that respect their human rights. His philosophy is that no, the conditions should be part of the punishment. And he tried to do a lot of changes even before the war, making the conditions, the life conditions inside for Palestinians inside the detention facilities in Israel worse and worse. That is his philosophy. Actually, he tried a lot of times before the war to deny some of the medical treatments from Palestinians. And after October 2023, the doors became open for him to do and to apply whatever he want. After that was one of the main difference between before October 2023 and after October, that the legal system in Israel vanished. Today, there is no legal system in Israel that can provide protection for the rights of the detainees, or Palestinian detainees. So Ben-Gvir and the Israeli guards and the Israeli soldiers were allowed to do whatever they want. That's why that these horrific things that we are describing they continue till now. They continue till now. They are not being stopped. And that's why you won't find any soldier or any a guard who are being punished. Even we are speaking about dozens of people who died because the legal system in Israel vanished. And when we go to court, we try to go to the courts, but the Israeli judges and the High Court of Justice in Israel are not helping. They are rejecting us, or they are being used just as a way to deal with international accountability. When an international court start to speak about something happening in Israel, or the international media start to speak about Sde Teman, you will find the Israeli court saying you should operate this place by the law. Okay, that was well known before. They always should operate by the law. You are not saying anything new.
Right. Right.
And like we have a case in the High Court in Israel that we submitted in March 2024,
Mm.
demanding to let the ICRC, the Red Cross, access to the detention facilities in Israel, as the international law say and as the Israeli law say. Since for a year now, every time we have a hearing, 2 days before, the Israeli authorities arrive to the court and ask for a delay. And the Israeli court allowed the delay.
Mm. Mm.
That happened 17 times. And we are not getting nothing. The ICRC are banned till now for a year and a half. And they are keeping asking for delays. And the Israeli judge are approving these delays. So that was one of the main changes. The legal system has vanished. And detainees were kept alone.
I really hope people will read this report, The Torture of Medical Workers in Israel, a call for urgent action. It's so important that people are aware of these very, very painful and brutal realities. Thank you so much, Naji, for sharing your time and analysis today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bito.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of Occupied Thoughts. Please make sure to check out the FMEP website, fmep.org, for resources related to this podcast and lots of other great content related to Palestine and Israel. And please make sure you're subscribed to this podcast to stay up to date. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Spotify, and you can watch video versions of our podcast, including this one on YouTube. And with that, I'm Peter Beinart signing off until the next episode of FMEP's Occupied Thoughts.